So we're continuing with our story about Mr. Beethoven and Christoph, and our letter today is from January 22nd, 1823. Dear Christoph, I have this very day returned from the place where Mr. Beethoven was born. It seems his family is well remembered there. They say Mr. Beethoven's grandfather was a musician in charge of all the music at the palace, and Mr. Beethoven's father was a musician too, but Christoph, this father was an unhappy man who took to drink. Mr. Beethoven was not a happy child. People who lived near their house remember hearing music coming from the attic late at night. Sometimes Mr. Beethoven's father would come home long after dark and get the young boy out of bed. He would make him practice his piano until dawn. The little Beethoven would play all night, tired and cold, his face awash with tears. Finally, as the sun came up, he would go to bed to the sound of morning bells. I will send this letter right away in the hope that you will answer soon. Affectionately, Uncle. The next letter, February 14, 1823. This afternoon, dear Uncle, a messenger arrived bearing a note for Mr. Beethoven. The messenger said to me, "This is from Prince Karl Lichnowsky, but the prince says that Mr. Beethoven's door, if it is closed, he is not to be disturbed." Mr. Beethoven must be a terrible man if even a prince is afraid of him. Your nephew, Christoph. And the reply on February 15, 1823. Dear Christoph, I've been thinking about your story about the prince. Christoph, I don't think the prince is afraid of Mr. Beethoven. I believe he is showing him respect. In Vienna, music is so loved that even a prince will tread carefully around a composer. Also, Mr. Beethoven has not returned their kindness. He has not been gentle with the fine people of Vienna, and they have done everything they can do to please him. Mr. Beethoven has always had rough manners. He turns down their invitations, dresses carelessly to visit, and arrives late for their dinners. Sometimes he is very angry if he is asked to play his music. There is one famous story of a grand lady who got down on her knees one evening to beg Mr. Beethoven to play. He refused. And there is another tale about a prince who teased Mr. Beethoven for not playing at dinner, and Mr. Beethoven flew into a rage. There are many princes, he said, but there is only one Beethoven. My belief, Christoph, is that a person has more to fear from Mr. Beethoven than has a little boy. Affectionately, Uncle. And our last letter for February. Dear Uncle, no news today but this. Do you remember I once told you about a stray dog who was whining on the street? He is a small and spotted dog, and I have found a way to make him stop his crying. Today he seemed quite pleased to share my sugar cake from lunch.